Global TV News Prime. President Tinubu says Nigeria will not succumb to terrorists, bandits, kidnappers, and in Business House Committee working to recover 29.721 billion unremitted government funds from CBN and other foreign seen Nigerian reschedules airlifting of civilians willing to leave South Africa. And in sports, coach Ahmad Dugu promises intensity as Falcons face Senegal again. Hello and welcome to all our viewers in Nigeria and around the world to News Prime on Global Television, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Jumai Manson. A quick reminder that Global Television is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times channel 276. Now the news info. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu swears in Mr. Joseph Tegbe as Minister of Power and Ambassador Shola Nkololaye as Minister of State for Foreign Affairs at the Presidential Villa, Abuja. This follows his resignation of at least two ministers ahead of the All Progressive Congress May 2026 primary elections. A statement by the Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Ononuga, said the short ceremony took place at the Council Chamber in the presence of ministers, spouses, and senior government officials. The two men were nominated by the President on May 5, 2026, following the resignation of former Power Minister Adebayo Adelabo and former Foreign Affairs Minister Yusuf Tuggar, both of whom stepped down to pursue elective office. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is in closed-door talks with the President of Madagascar, Colonel Michael Randrianirina, at the Aso Rock Presidential Villa, Abuja. He was received by a delegation led by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Bianca Ojukwu, before being ushered into the President's office complex for a closed-door session. The high-level engagement marks Randrianirina's first official visit to Nigeria since he assumed office in October 2025. Following the political transition that saw the exit of former President Andre Rajoelina. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu says Nigeria will not surrender to terrorists, bandits, and other criminals trying to intimidate the country. President Tinubu, who spoke during the National Interdenominational Church service held at the National Christian Center, Abuja, as part of activities marking the 2026 Democracy Day celebration, said his administration is stepping up efforts to alleviate economic hardship confronting Nigerians. He reiterated his administrative vow to defeat the agents of violence and secure the release of all Nigerians held in captivity across the country. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is set to commission a series of completed infrastructure projects across the Federal Capital Territory as part of activities marking his third anniversary in office. Now, the FCT Minister, Nyesom Wike, disclosed this while inspecting ongoing and completed projects across Abuja. Kabir Hassan reports.
A wave of infrastructure renewal is underway in the Federal Capital Territory as the administration prepares for official commissioning of key projects across the city center and satellite towns. The FCT Minister, Nyesom Wike, who went round several project sites, expressed satisfaction with the level of work done, describing the development as a clear demonstration of the government's drive to modernize Abuja infrastructure.
The President was like the commissioning the Ostex Road. Those three projects are 100% complete and ready for commissioning. What's important to us is that we'll be able to achieve the timeline, and I commend the various contractors that are involved for keeping to their promises.
The minister confirmed that the commissioning program will commence in June, with President Bola Tinubu expected to inaugurate several of the projects. He added that the exercise will extend beyond the city center to area councils, aimed at strengthening connectivity and opening up rural communities within the capital territory. The project, according to the administration, are expected to ease transportation, stimulate economic activities, and improve access to public services across the FCT. As preparations intensify, the FCT administration says the commissioning exercise reflect a broader commitment to infrastructure renewal and inclusive development across the nation's capital. Kabir Hassan, Global TV News.
Over now to the governor of Benue State, Hyacinth Alia, has signed the state electricity bill into law, describing the legislation as a major step towards improving power supply, attracting investment, and driving economic development in the state. The development was disclosed in a statement on Monday by the technical advisor to the governor on media, publicity, and strategy communication, Chief Solomon Lorpev. The statement further stated that Alia said the law would open up the power sector for increased investment, promote competition, enhance consumer protection, and expand access to electricity for undeserved communities across the state. The federal government has released funds to pay 5 months of accumulated consolidated academic tools allowance owed to lecturers in federal universities, directing vice chancellors to immediately clear all outstanding payments. Minister of Education Tunji Alausa instructed vice chancellors of federal universities to ensure the prompt disbursement of the funds to eligible academic staff. The directive dated June 4, 2026 was addressed to vice chancellors of federal universities and forms part of the federal government's implementation of agreements reached with the Academic Staff Union of Universities. Moving on now, the Minister of Defense Christopher Musa and Kaduna State Governor Uba Sani have described quality education, active citizenship, and community collaboration with security agencies as vital in addressing banditry, terrorism, and other security challenges facing Nigeria. Speaking at the event, Musa described the academy as a strategic, non-kinetic intervention in the fight against insecurity, stressing that sustainable peace requires more military operations and intelligence gathering. He stated that education remains a powerful tool for combating ignorance, hopelessness, and extremist ideologies. The National Youth Service Corps NYSC has announced the release of deployment list for prospective Corps members in the 2026 Batch B Stream 1 exercise, and the scheme disclosed this in a post on its official X handle, informing prospective Corps members that their deployment details are now available for checking. The release of the deployment list is one of the key stages in the NYSC mobilization process, coming ahead of the orientation course for newly mobilized Corps members. As part of effort to rid the state of insurgents, troops of Joint Task Force Operation Savannah Shield have apprehended 5 suspected bandits, terrorists, informants in separate operations conducted in Niger State. Acting Media Information Officer Headquarters Joint Task Force North Central Operation Savannah Shield, Captain Jamilu Yahaya, in a statement said, troops also recovered communication devices, cash, and other items linking the suspects to criminal activities. The deployment of forest guards has gathered momentum with Kebbi, Gombe, Kwara, Kaduna, Edo, Imo, Bayelsa, Anambra, and several other states, scaling up operations under the federal government-backed initiative, although implementation remains uneven nationwide. The renewed focus on forest security follows President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's approval of the recruitment of 1,000 forest guards after recent attacks and abductions linked to suspected bandits in Oyo and Kwara State. Against the backdrop of the increase in attacks by criminals, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu had reinstated his administration's commitment to intensify the fight against insecurity and ensure the release of all persons held captive across the country. The Nigerian Air Force has continued to provide arsenal surveillance support to ongoing effort aimed at rescuing teachers and pupils abducted from Yawota and Ahoro Isanile communities in Orire local government area of Oyo State. In a statement by the Air Force spokesman, Air Commodore Ehime Ejodame, Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde disclosed this during a courtesy visit by the representative of the Chief of the Air Staff, Air Marshal Sunday Kelvin Anike, and Air Officer Commanding Logistics Command, Air Vice Marshal Abubakar Sule. The statement says Makinde revealed that the Air Force promptly deployed an Asner surveillance platform immediately after the abduction was reported, providing critical intelligence to support search and rescue operations. Over now to Kano State Fire Service has recorded 58 fire incidents and 13 deaths across the state in the month of May 2026. This was contained in a statement issued on Monday by the Public Relations Officer of Kano State Fire Service, ACFO, Saminu Abdullahi, on Monday. Abdullahi noted that the Director of Service, Sani Anas, disclosed this while giving a summary of the agency's operational activities for the month. Medical experts are warning against habits of using digital gadgets in the dark environment, advising that prolonged exposure may contribute to serious eye health risk, including conditions that affect visions over time. And optometrist Dr. David Owandu spoke exclusively to Global Television, explaining how individuals can better protect their eyesight. Zara Nasiru tells us more.
Experts say sight remains the most important human sense, responsible for about 80% of the information the brain receives from the environment, supporting learning, movement, and daily decision-making. They explain that eye cancer, although rare, occurs when abnormal cells develop and grow uncontrollably in or around the eye, affecting structures such as the eyeball, eyelids, and tear ducts. Speaking on the condition, Dr. David Owandu noted that early warning signs may include persistent redness of the eye and other unusual changes that should not be ignored.
Of the eye, and then you see that the redness does not end, it continues to multiply. And even when you use medications, they are not helping. You must first of all begin to go backwards. You know how you went down that road, you have to turn around by first of all using things that will begin to give you that protection you need again against oxidative stress. Then those cells will need to die off and new cells need to be born, protected, and you need to restore order.
Dr. Owandu advised that one way to reduce risks is to avoid using gadgets in complete darkness, recommending protective measures such as proper lighting and, where necessary, doctor-prescribed supplements. He stressed that simple lifestyle adjustments can help reduce strain on the eyes and prevent long-term complications linked to excessive screen exposure.
One, get protective lenses that filter out harmful rays of light. That is very, very important. Some people don't like wearing glasses. I understand that, but it's not just solving your refractive errors. It's also protecting your eye against several things you don't want to get into the eye.
The optometrists also urge the public to prioritize regular eye checkups at least once a year, noting that many people expose their eyes to environmental and digital hazards without routine medical assessment. He emphasized that early detection remains key in preventing and managing serious eye conditions. Health experts continue to encourage the public to adopt safer screen habits and seek professional eye care regularly to safeguard vision and overall eye health. Zahra Nasir, Global TV News.
You are watching the live broadcast of News Prime. News Prime continues after this weather forecast, plus business, foreign and sports stories on the other side of this break. Please stay with us.
Hello and welcome. Here is the weather outlook for Tuesday across the country. The day is expected to begin on a relatively quiet note across much of the northern and the north central region, with stable atmospheric conditions prevailing through the morning hours. However, we cannot rule out isolated morning rain showers over parts of Cross River, Akwa Ibom Rivers, and Lagos State. And as we move into the afternoon and evening hours, increasing atmospheric instability and moisture availability will support the development of thunderstorms, accompanied by moderate rainfall across many parts of the south. These conditions are also expected to extend into the Federal Capital Territory, parts of Kwara, Kogi, and Plateau State. Further north, thunderstorms are likely over parts of Borno, Jigawa, Adamawa, Taraba, Gombe, Bauchi, Kaduna, and Kano State later in the day. Thunderstorm-prone areas may experience brief gusty winds and reduced visibility during rainfall events. Residents are advised to remain weather aware and plan outdoor activities accordingly. And that's the forecast. Do have a pleasant Tuesday.
You're welcome back, and if you're just tuning in, this is News Prime on Global Television. Thank you for staying with us. In Business Now, concerns over food safety, environmental sustainability, and the future of Nigeria's agricultural system took center stage in Abuja as stakeholders called for stricter regulations and broader consultations on the adoption of genetically modified organisms, GMOs. Representatives from government agencies, environmental groups, and regulatory bodies say decisions on GMOs adoption must be guided by science, transparency, and public interest. Obong Osoro tells us more.
The growing debate over genetically modified organisms once again came under focus as stakeholders gathered to examine the implication of GMO adoption on food security, biodiversity, and farmers' livelihoods. Participants stressed that for decades, Nigerian farmers have relied heavily on indigenous seeds preserved and shared within communities, warning that changes to this system could have far-reaching consequences for local agriculture. Questions were also raised over regulatory compliance, with concerns that existing approval processes require stronger coordination among relevant agencies to guarantee transparency and public confidence.
Registration of a GMO is not allowed, is not done, and has not been done. But we identify a gap that there is possibility for people to smuggle GMO products, smuggling exists everywhere in the world. So in view of that, we've increased our post-market surveillance activities by adding to the checklist the quest to screen for GMOs in supermarket, market, wherever you visit. Is part of the activity now.
The guest lecturer, Professor Johnson Ekpere, former Director General of the National Biosafety Management Agency, warned against what he described as the increasing dependence on genetically modified crops, arguing that concerns remain over their long-term implications and economic impact on smallholder farmers.
I subscribe to this position because agroecology enhances soil health, water conservation, crop diversification, integrated pest management, organic nutrient recycling, climate resilience, and community participation.
The facilitator, Nimong Basi, called for greater transparency in approval processes and urged policymakers to prioritize environmental protection, indigenous knowledge, and interest of local farmers.
What we're talking about is that you want to have a secure, bio-safe nation. We must emphasize food sovereignty. We ensure that we define our own food and specify that we reserve the right to what we eat and how we produce the food.
As conversations around food security intensify, stakeholders insist that decision on GMO adoption must reflect scientific innovation with environmental protection, public health concerns, and the realities facing Nigeria's farmers. Ubong Usoro, Global TV News.
A new economic brief released by financial experts and director of Arthur Group Martin Zitua states Nigeria's persistent electricity crisis and costing the economy more than 48 trillion naira annually. The report attributed the staggering losses to chronic power shortages, widespread resilience on safe-generated electricity, disrupted business operations, damaged equipment, and post-harvest losses across key sectors of the economy. Citing data from African Development Bank, the brief noted that more than 70% of Nigerian businesses own or share fossil fuel generators to sustain operations. The House Committee on Public Accounts is working towards the recovery of about 29.721 billion naira in Treasury single account collection in the interest accrued yet to be paid into the government coffers of the Central Bank of Nigeria. The chairman of the committee, Bamidele Salam, who announced this in Abuja, said the Public Accounts Committee undertook an extensive examination of transactions and remittances connected to the remitter platform with the view of identifying revenue leakages, enforcing compliance, and recovering all outstanding funds due to federal government. The Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission has commenced moves to harmonize regulatory processes with the Nigerian Nuclear Regulatory Authority as part of efforts to strengthen radiological safety in oil and gas operations and reduce the cost of doing business in the upstream petroleum sector. Now, the initiative emerged from a recent meeting between the Commission Chief Executive of the NUPRC, ASEN, and the Director General and Chief Executive Operator of the NNRA, Yoa Idris, at the Commission's headquarters in Abuja. The Commission's Head of Corporate Communications and Media, Eniola Akinkuotu, stated that the collaboration is expected to address overlapping regulatory requirements, close existing gaps in oversight, and create a more efficient compliance framework for operators in the industry. Nigeria's trade sector attracted $65.79 million in foreign capital in the first quarter of 2026, representing a 91.31% increase from the $34.39 million recorded in the corresponding period of 2025, despite a slowdown from the strong inflows recorded in the second half of last year. Data from the National Bureau of Statistics Capital Importation Report show that foreign investment into the trade sector rose to 900.31% year-on-year, underscoring renewed investor confidence in commercial activities and cross-border trade. The lowest inflow, however, fell between $80.94 million recorded in the third quarter of 2025 and $119.21 million attracted in the fourth quarter of 2025, indicating that momentum moderated after two consecutive quarters of strong growth. On the foreign news now, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has condemned what he described as misinformation and fake news circulating on social media amid rising anti-immigration tensions across the country. His comments came after violent attacks in parts of Western Cape left 2 Mozambicans dead and forced hundreds of migrants to flee their homes. Mukhtar Kassim tells us more.
President Cyril Ramaphosa says South Africans should not be influenced by social media campaigns spreading false information about migrants living in the country. His remarks follow a wave of anti-immigration violence that erupted in Mossel Bay, where attacks on migrant communities left 2 Mozambican nationals dead and displaced hundreds of foreign nationals from neighboring African countries.
Yet we must recognize that illegal immigration is not the cause of all our economic challenges. There are other causes. The answer must be faster economic growth, greater investment, industrial expansion, infrastructure development, and the creation of millions of new jobs.
Ramaphosa added that misinformation and online campaigns are fueling tensions at a time when authorities are working to maintain peace and social cohesion. The violence comes after a citizen-led group opposed to irregular migration called on undocumented foreign nationals to leave South Africa by the end of June, triggering fear among migrant communities and even some South African citizens.
We will not be fooled or influenced by social media campaigns that spread misinformation, fake news, and lies about people
who are in our country. We must be concerned that anti-foreigner sentiment is at times accompanied by tribal and ethnic slurs, insults and attacks aimed at other South Africans. This is not acceptable.
Several countries, including Mozambique, Ghana, Malawi and Nigeria, have begun taking arrangements for bringing out citizens from the affected unrest, while South African authorities continue efforts to restore calm in affected communities. Mukhtar Qasim, Global TV News.
In sports news now, Nigerian sprint sensation Favour Ofili continued her encouraging start to the season by finishing third in the women's 200 meters at the Lone Star Grand Prix. Ofili clocked a season's best time of 22.15 seconds to secure a place on the podium in only her second 200-meter race of the year. Olympic champion Gabby Thomas won the race in a world-leading 21.70 seconds, while fellow American Kyla White finished second in 22.07 seconds. Nigeria's performance represents a significant improvement from her season opener and underlines her readiness for the challenges ahead. With the World Championships and Diamond League events approaching, Ofili appears to be building form at the right time. The Super Falcons will take a more intense approach to today's second international friendly against Senegal following a closely contested first meeting in Ikenebremo. Head coach Justin Madugue said that this side will be more purposeful in attack when they host the Lionesses of Tarega against at the Remo Star Sports Complex, with both nations using the doubleheader to prepare for next month's Women African Cup of Nations in Morocco. Goals from Asisat Oshoala converting from the spot and midfielder Tony Payne gave Nigeria a 2-1 victory on Friday before Senegal pulled one back with 4 minutes of regulation time remaining. Real Madrid have confirmed that Florentino Perez will continue as president of the club after emerging victorious in the latest presidential election. The announcement was made through an official statement published on the club's website, with the electoral board rectifying Perez's re-election and extending his leadership of European giants. The new elected board also includes Secretary Jose Luis de Valle Perez and several board members who will serve alongside Perez during the new administration. As Global TV News Prime comes to an end, let's take a quick look at our top stories again. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu says Nigeria will not surrender to terrorists, bandits and other criminals trying to intimidate the country. In business, the House Committee on Public Accounts is working towards the recovery of about 29.721 billion naira in Treasury single account collection and accrued interest yet to be paid into the government coffers of the Central Bank of Nigeria. And on the foreign scene, the federal government has rescheduled the airlifting of first batch of Nigerian citizens wanting to leave South Africa following the recent wave of xenophobic attack against blacks in the country. And finally, in sports, the Super Falcons will take a more intense approach to today's second international friendly against Senegal following a closely contested first meeting in Ikenebremo. That's it on News Prime. A quick reminder that Global TV is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times channel 276. Kindly follow us across all social media platforms now showing on your screen by using @GlobalTVNG. I am Jumai Manson. Thank you for watching.